Welcome, and thanks for stopping by. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to our podcast on one of your favorite platforms, I'm glad you're here. At this time, I would like to thank our partners and sponsors for their dedication to helping the show to grow. We cannot do what we do without their help.
Everybody, this is Kevin James, and you have reached the Millennium Beat. Today, I have Clint with me. And Clint, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Clint, we don't know each other that much. We just kind of met each other. We've kind of talked a little bit pre-show. But tell me about yourself. Where did Clint come from?
Sure. Well, first off, my name is Clint Callahan. I've been a therapist and social worker and life coach for 23 years now.
Cool.
I'm 47 years old. I grew up in the Black Hills of South Dakota. When I was born, I weighed 1 pound 15 ounces. At my lowest weight, I got down to about 1 pound 9 ounces, and this was 47 years ago. So they didn't know the things that they know now, that you can hold premature babies, that it's okay to, care for them, hold them, cuddle them, all those things. So I spent about the first 4 months of my life in an incubator. Basically, only touch was when doctors came in and took my blood, took me to surgery, did things to try to help keep me alive. I found all this out because my mom wrote a journal about the time when I was there.
Okay.
And just all the stress that they went through, having a premature child. And the crazy thing is that I really shouldn't be here because the next night, my mom was supposed to fly to her family farm, which is in the middle of nowhere and up in northern South Dakota. So if that would have happened, I wouldn't be here. So I was always kind of told, oh, you're a blessing, you're a gift from God, all these kind of things. And so that started to inform a lot of my early life. But then when I got into school, everything kind of changed. Because when I got into school, when you're told that for so long, it kind of gives you a little bit of an inflated sense of self and things.
Right.
And so I went into school expecting, well, everyone's going to like me, everyone's going to be my friend, everyone's going to think I'm special, all these things, right? School is not like that. It is dog eat dog. And that was elementary school, high school, junior high, all those things. And I was bullied a lot. And it was a lot mostly because I was confident, I was outgoing in the beginning. And then as bullying continued to happen, I retreated more into myself. I started getting anxious. I started having somatic symptoms of feeling sick and missing a lot of school because I didn't want to be around the bullies. And my particular type of bullying that happened to me was individually my friends were my friends, but as a group, they were the mob mentality piece. And that was one of the hard things because I was trying to understand, well, why is it when we're alone, you're great and you're friendly and we get along and we have great conversations and we have lots of fun together, but when we're in the group, all of a sudden, I'm the butt of all the jokes. I'm the one who's always in trouble. Not to say that everybody didn't, get razzed on, but it was like it felt disproportionate to me. So maybe that's just my story, or maybe that I told myself, or maybe it was actually happened. I have no way of really knowing.
Well, don't you think it's peer pressure? Because if you're another child or another kid, and the other kids are harassing you, I mean, they want to feel fit in. They want to fit in too. So even though they're in person, they love you, they like you, they have fun with you. But when they're a group, they say, "Oh, I got to do what these guys are doing because they won't accept me now, and they'll reject me." So they are part of the group. They
don't want to be the target.
They don't want to be the target. So they and everybody's picking on you, so they jump in, even though they don't really want to do it, and they're too young mentally, physically to say, "Hey, this is emotionally." Let me back up a little bit on your story, and something popped in my head while you were saying about being a premature and that you weren't touched. as a psychologist and stuff like that,
Mhm.
how important is it to hold your babies, to hug your babies? I mean, we're talking not even just as a
Yeah,
baby, but when they grow up,
yeah.
to hug them, to stuff like that. How
It,
important is that?
it is so important, and I didn't even actually realize how important it was until
Hmm.
about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So my whole life I have not. If I instigate the touch, if I instigate the hug, if I instigate those things, I'm okay. But if
Hmm.
other people do it, it always felt like fire ants crawling under my
Oh,
skin
wow.
because
Hmm.
because my body remembered the first 4 months of my life being poked, prodded, surgery. So where
Okay.
anytime anybody touched me, there was pain involved for the
Pain
first
involved.
four
Okay.
months. And so I went through a process called EMDR, which is a specific trauma therapeutic process, which is
Okay.
eye movement resensitization and reprocessing,
Okay.
desensitization and reprocessing. And so I went through the training to learn to do that for people, but I also volunteered to be the guinea pig up front to
Okay.
have it done to teach and educate the people how it worked. And as I was going through the process, because I was young, I couldn't remember that. But when
Hmm.
I'm, but the about 2 weeks before the training, my youngest, who is a hugging monster and wants constant affection because that's what
Right.
God does, right? He sticks
Right.
those things in your life whether you want them or not. And so he was a hugging monster. He needs to be touched. He wants to hold me. He wants to hug, grab, squeeze, touch.
Hmm.
And it was really hard for me. And
Right.
but a couple weeks before that, he jumped up behind me when I was sitting on the couch and grabbed me and hugged me and said he loved me, and I lost it.
Great.
I was
Lots of.
total fight or flight mode, freaked
Hmm.
out, yelled at him, told him to get away, don't touch me, all these things. And the look on his face was just,
Oh,
it
yeah.
just broke my heart.
Okay.
And so my wife, who's also a therapist, said, okay, you need to get that looked at.
Hmm.
That is not normal. You know that's not normal. Go get that
Right.
looked at. And so I used that as the entry point into that physical touch trauma stuff.
Hmm.
And so what happened, so EMDR is a very specific process. And
Okay.
they went through the process with me where they helped me kind of go back and look at this stuff from like a third party perspective. It's
Okay.
basically called clinical disassociation. And so it allows you to look at the stuff that's going on kind of from a third party over the shoulder perspective, which then allows you to start to break the links in that chain of the trauma. And
Okay.
as I was going through that and processing through that, the last thing before we ended the session and I felt like I was doing better was popped into my head completely unbidden, not even had it even in my brain at all, was the doctors weren't trying to hurt me. They were
Hmm.
trying to save my life. And so it's
Right.
been about 2.5 years now since I've had that, and it
Okay.
doesn't affect me anymore. People can
Cool.
hug me and come up and touch me and do all that
Hmm.
stuff. And of course, there's still danger because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
part of
Yeah.
being a human being. But
Right.
when it's now, it's not like fire ants under my skin. So it's
Oh, that's
amazing
cool.
what happens if you give yourself permission to go through and process and break through the story, the trauma, the things that go on. And that's one of the reasons why I
Hmm.
decided I wanted to continue to do therapy. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to become a life coach, because I wanted to share more of this kind of information with
Cool.
other people,
Help all the
because it's so necessary to recognize that it doesn't take a lot to make big changes in your life. It takes
Right.
just these little things. Because really, the process that I did to get out of that feeling state literally took 2 hours a day for 3 days. So
Okay.
in 6 hours over 3 days, this lifelong thing that I didn't even really recognize I had
Hmm.
is now gone. And it's made my
Uh,
life immensely better.
oh, that's cool. Two things I was thinking of. One is animals. Animals, just like people, they love to be patted and caressed and
Mhm.
held. They
Yes.
crave that just as much as humans
Yes.
do. I remember years ago I used to play a game and it had animals, and if you pet the animal, hearts would fly up from the animal. There was love flying, And I thought about that. It's pretty cool. Also, a little bit about myself is dealing like how you were saying when you were hugged, you kind of freaked out a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't mind hugs. Actually, to be honest with you, I like hugs, but I don't go after them. It's like if I see somebody, if I meet somebody, even people I know personally, I've known for years. I mean, guys or girls, I don't go up to them and give them a big hug. I don't have a problem with them giving me a hug. I have no problem with that. I just don't. What I don't like is if you go to a church and in a church environment, and all of a sudden it's grandma who you don't know, or somebody like that comes up to you and runs up and goes, "Oh yeah, I'm so glad to see you," and hug you. I kind of like, whoa, back up.
Yeah, well, hey, have personal
Hold on a
space.
second.
Oh, personal space.
Right. But in generally, I love hugs, and I just don't implement them. I just don't go after them. If you give, I remember one time I had a girl work for me, and she gave me a hug, and I go, "Wow, that's the first time you've been working for me for years. That's the first time you gave me a hug." She goes, "No, I said, "No, I would remember." But but that's people and how they react to things. And you reacted one particular way because of the experience when you were younger. So, and it's good that you're helping people, because again, people, you didn't realize it, what the trauma was, so if you can help people realize it and help overcome it, now, like yourself, your child now is better off now because you've learned how to deal with what went on in your life. So, well, that's pretty cool.
And that is what it comes back to, is really it comes down to, in the 23 years I've provided therapy, life coaching, and these kind of things, I've been psychologically minded my entire life.
Okay.
But really what it is that this is a different level, where it's recognizing that, physical things, our body, is what people don't really remember and think about when it comes to the human body, is every human being on the planet, biologically speaking, we are still in a low-level fight or flight mode. Because if you really think about it, human beings, about the last major evolutionary shift that's happened for human beings from anthropological data and all these kind of things was about 185,000 years ago.
Okay.
But for 180,000 years, that was pure, unadulterated survival.
Right.
Where generation after generation after generation was, am I going to be eaten by a tiger today? Am I going to be attacked by a wild animal today? Am I going to eat the wrong thing and die today? Pure and unadulterated survival. And because of that, every human being is in a low-level fight or flight response mode, which is fear.
Right.
So all of us, that's why I've talked with other people, and when I tell them, I'm like, but I don't. But what are you saying? Everything comes from fear? I'm like, everything doesn't come from fear, but fear is the seed in all the different feelings we have. Because it goes like, it's like this, right? So you wake up late for a meeting one day because your alarm clock didn't go off because the power went out, right? So you jump out of bed, you get into the car, you get ready, you drive as fast as you can, you hit every red light because that's how life works.
Right.
You show up late for the meeting, and all the while your brain is thinking, my boss is going to fire me. I'm going to lose my place. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose all these things. I'm going to end up dead. Because that's what the biological survival mechanism is just don't end up dead.
Right.
But that's the story that we begin to tell ourselves when crisis and anxiety happens. And in the recognition of that, you're able to do a really simple process to turn off the sympathetic nervous system, so that you don't get tons of adrenaline, tons of cortisol, all these fight or flight hormones that dump into your body when you're telling yourself that story. Because your brain doesn't know the difference between a real attack in the physical world and what's happening inside of your own head.
Right.
And that's the issue. So when you can recognize that it's only up here, you can slow down, you can change your breathing. And the best technique that I've taught a lot of military, ex-military. I've taught, anxiety, depression, PTSD, anyone with these kind of major traumas or even minor traumas is called box breathing. And what box breathing is it's you breathe in and hold for 4, you breathe out for 4 seconds and hold empty for 4. You breathe in for 4 seconds and then you hold for 4, and you do that 4 times, right?
Okay.
It's a box.
Oh.
And by doing that, it tells your brain, if you're breathing like that, obviously you're not being attacked by anything. Because if you're being chased by a tiger or a lion or anything like that, you're going to be like, I need to change my breathing. I need to make sure everything's okay.
Right.
But when you do that in the moment, because most of the time we're doing this when we're sitting at a desk, when we're sitting in traffic, when we are around other people, like in social situations and all these things, because the story that we tell ourselves is the thing that creates our perception, which creates our reality. And that goes back to a lot of me, right? In my story. Because my story was, I'm a gift from God because I shouldn't be alive and I shouldn't be normal. whatever that means, right? I should be disabled. I should have brain damage. I should not be able to see. I should not be able to hear. I should not be able to walk because of how early I was born. So I am really lucky, and I know that. But it always comes back to then that story translated to anxiety, depression, people pleasing, imposter syndrome, all of these things, because then the real world, the outside world out of my home was, you're nothing special. And so I started to internalize that story, even though it's true, but it's not true, right? Just like coming on this podcast. My thought that I often have when I've done a couple podcasts, because I've been talking about this stuff and pitching this stuff and talking about my program. But every time before I go on, I'm like, who's going to listen to me? Why is my story special? What have I really done that's that special? I've lived my life. That's all that I've done, right? To me, that's what it is. But I often forget that the reason why I share my story about the suicide of my mother, about the issues that I had growing up, about all these different things that have happened in my life is because if someone gets some kind of information out of it that makes them feel less alone, that's the point. Because that is what we are starved for today, is real, authentic connections. Because this is great. I'm so grateful that we can do this kind of thing. But it is nothing compared to sitting in front of another human being and seeing the full everything when it comes to what's going on with them.
Well, that's it's funny how you say that. I mean, I do, as I said, 3 different types. I do phone interviews. I do this kind of interviews, which is using a Riverside or Ecamm. And then I do a audio version, which is in person. If I do like a radio style, I do that. And I like it. But the best stories that I can tell and I love is sitting around a dinner table, listening to a couple talk about how they met and fell in love, my love stories. And they can be an hour and a half, 2 hours long because because it's the guy and then the girl and they met and they fell in love and they lived and the good, the bad, the ugly type of stories. And I did a podcast with somebody once, and they found out that somebody else I did a podcast with was, when they were younger, was kind of messing around with this guy's wife. I mean, they weren't even married at the time. I mean, there was no affair or anything like that, but it was like they were teenagers and they were, making out in the back of the football field, And it's funny because they go, oh, yeah, I did an interview with him. And they called him up on the phone. They go, hey, I heard you were, But my point is yes, personally, I love sitting at a table and talking to, but unfortunately, you're in Colorado. I mean, I eventually will sit in front of you and we'll have a conversation and we'll tell this story. But again, I can't be everywhere. A guy wanted to do an interview. He was in Quebec. He goes, he wants to do an in-person interview. I go, that sounds great, but I don't plan on being in Quebec for quite a long time. So, I mean, I've done interviews in Washington State. I got one coming up eventually in Israel. I mean, that's the nice thing about computers. Yes, the perfect thing is face to face, but I would rather have this than not have anything.
And that's exactly what I believe as well, because if it wasn't for this kind of stuff, the pandemic would have ruined me. Because if it wasn't for them rushing and pushing through the bills that allow me to do virtual therapy now, I do probably 35% of my business virtually. And I think it's fantastic because something is better than nothing, just like you said. And especially when it comes to these kind of things, because if it wasn't for that, that's one of the reasons why I decided to go and start doing Small Changes, Big Impact as a virtual group program. Because it allows me to then connect to more people in more places and give them something rather than the nothing that they've had or that they've felt they've had for so long. So I'm not saying that this is not good. I'm saying that this is,
it's better than
the ideal
nothing.
is in person, of course, correct.
Yeah,
but
it's better
this is amazing as well, because otherwise, how would have you and I met? Right?
We wouldn't have. You might have heard of this company, you might not have. You ever heard of Better Health?
Yes, I've heard of that.
Yes. The only reason why, if you ever watch the TV show Smallville with Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor and Tom Welling is
I love his podcast. Sorry.
Well, it's Michael's podcast or the second podcast, because he has 2. He has Inside of You. He has Inside of You, and he interviews a lot of people. He's really good. And then he does a Smallville talk that Tom and Talkville. Yes, I watch it all the time. I don't watch a lot of people's or listen to a lot of podcasts, but I do watch that actually today is Wednesday. So then I watched watched all 10 seasons of Smallville.
Yeah.
And now I'm back watching it like every week. I watch a new episode.
With them,
and they're on
kind of like you're watching it with them. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, even though they're kind of ahead of us, like they said, call us and leave a message, but they're like 5 or 6 shows ahead. And I want to watch it. Like last night, I watched season 3, episode 2. Today they'll talk about season 3, episode 2, which they might have done a week ago or 2 weeks ago. But my point is they talk about that.
Man.
Yeah,
I love that show. I grew up watching that show.
Well, I think Lana Lane
I thought it was fantastic.
I think Lana.
I'm 47, so grew up. I mean, if I grew up, I mean, I was like in my early 30s when it came on for the first time. So, just not really.
Well, I always have a show if the female actress is cute or something like that, and Lana Lane with Kristen. I can't even pronounce her last name. Keurig was gorgeous then, and if you look at her now, she looks almost the same. She does. Well, let me see. It was 20 years later. So she's probably in her late. Let me see. She was probably in her early 20s back then. So 20 plus, in her 20s, 40. Yeah, early 40s. But she looks just the same. I mean, she's gorgeous. And I mean, unfortunately, Allison Mack got a little mixed up with some stuff, and she's cute in her own way.
We could have a conversation about that. That's a whole podcast in itself.
Oh, yeah.
They've done whole podcasts.
They have. And I guess she just was released from prison.
That's what I heard.
That's what I heard, too. So, I mean, and Lex Luthor was good. I mean, if you watch the new Superman, the new Lex Luthor, he's different. He's a little bit more... like he's almost reminds me of that character that was on that Superman, like Bruno Mars. He's a bigger guy. Yes. He had hair until he shaved it off, and I mean, it's like different universe, different backstory, but but he's different. We've had how many different Lex Luthors, how many different Supermans we've had, and
we've had 5 or 6 different Lex Luthors, and I think we've had 9 different Supermen.
I know.
I love comic books. I'm all about that stuff.
And then even this Superman, he was on the same universe as Supergirl. And that was they were. That's how we got started. But they completely washed that away. He's now on another universe. They don't even talk about his cousin or they. And I guess unfortunately, WB or not WB. What is it? Is it WB? No, it's it was
CW.
CW. That right?
It is now. Yeah.
I know. It keeps changing. They actually got rid of all their Arrow shows. Like so, I think there's one more season of Superman and Lois. Yeah. The end. I think it's end of season 4, and they're not even going
to be the end. They're doing like 10 episodes for that.
It's 8 or 10 episodes.
Though, I gotta say, the way that they portrayed last season of Lois going through cancer and Tyler Hoechlin, who, as Superman, being completely powerless, and the way he had to surrender and recognize that and get help through going through therapy and doing those things. I think they portrayed that amazingly. I was like, finally, they portrayed the way it really is for someone who's going through this when it comes to the grief and the loss and the mental health side of things of how do I cope with this? Because for so many people that have a loved one that are sick, it's how do you cope with this thing that you can't do anything about, and you just have to hope that the medical doctors know what they're doing, hope that the treatment is effective and all of these things. But I think that's one of the things they did really well is they also did it where they showed you that there is hope. As long as you do what you're supposed to do. The fact that they showed Lois being stubborn and not wanting to do her treatments. The fact that they showed him going into group, not going into group, changing his mind. All the stuff, all those things happen in real life. And I love that so much because it was amazing to see that.
I agree with you. I understand that. I know, like, these kind of shows, I want hope. Unfortunately, I like television. I mean, my mother died of breast cancer, so so that was a little bit. And I says, a lot of times people watch television or movies not for reality. I mean, it's more for escape. Yeah. And it was hard. I mean, I actually stopped watching it for a while because I said I don't want to watch a movie her throwing up in the toilet, and I want to see Superman fighting Lex Luthor, and comic book, not non-reality things. I mean, I understand this did minister and did help people because was portrayed correctly. But again, it was a little heavier. And I'm not a drama fan. I don't really like. I like comedy or romantic comedies and actions. Drama is kind of on my bottom of my list, even through the series, I stopped watching it. Then I binge watch it, because it gets too drama. I mean, even the kid who played, what is it? Was it Jonathan? Yeah, the boy that played him for a couple seasons.
The first one or the second one? Yeah,
the first one.
He was, because he had too many mental health things going on because it was too difficult,
Yeah.
But the fact he made that choice at such a young age.
Yeah, which is a good thing. A lot of people. I mean, there was I don't know her name, but there was some Olympic person that actually backed out of some stuff because she says, it's just I'm more concerned about my health and my mental being than getting a gold medal. I can speak. Well, we know we're running out of time. You only gave me a little bit of time, which is okay. As I said before, what would you like to say in closing to people listening? And again, I'll have you back and we'll talk some more, and we'll talk some more about some of your life and stuff like that. So this is basically a little introduction about Clint's life. So what would you like to say to somebody listening? Words of advice?
What I'd like to tell people is that if you're feeling stuck or like you're failing in different areas of your life, believe me when I tell you, you can make changes in just 100 days. The key is to focus on renovating the 4 main areas of your life: how you spend your time, the way you connect with people, how you handle your emotions, and finding your purpose. And that's one of the things that, my Small Changes, Big Impact transformational system is designed to do. It's designed to help you take accountability. It's designed to help you learn how to use 30 different psychological tools to make small changes in those areas in about 15 minutes, just about 1% a day, so that you can change your life and make it unrecognizable. I'm more than happy to just have a conversation if you have any questions, interests, thoughts about these things, and you can reach out to me at smallchangesbigimpact.net/info. And on that website, you can get information. There's a link. There's a 20-minute training on there that you can get for free on burnout. And or you can just set up a call to talk to me for about a half hour about whatever you're kind of going through. You can also find me, of course, on the ubiquitous Facebook and Instagram at Small Changes Big Impact the number 4 and then the letter U.
Okay, cool. Well, that's great. Well, Clint, thank you very much for being on. I appreciate you. And as I said, I'm going to have you back, and we'll talk some more about this, because we can get in depth more in this conversation. So, hey, everybody, thank you. You've been listening to the Millennium Beat with your host, Kevin James. I'm glad you're here. Stay tuned next week for we have more guests coming. And
this has been a Millennium Beat LLC production. Views and opinions of the guest are not always the views and opinions of the Millennium Beat LLC. Check us out on social media, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and TikTok at the Millennium Beat, or on Twitter at Millennium_Beat. If you would like to partner with us to reach the world, go to our website for more information. You can go to themillenniumbeat.com or tmb2000.net. Your financial support is greatly appreciated. We couldn't do all we do without your support. The Millennium Beat just updated our website from the ground up. Check it out at themillenniumbeat.com, or you can get there by using millenniumbeat.com or tmb2000.net, where you'll be redirected to the millenniumbeat.com's homepage. I want to thank Mass Inbound for their awesome work on our website. If you're looking for somebody to build your site, I recommend them. You can reach them at massinbound.com. That is massinbound.com. These are some of the things that you can find on our website. Homepage. You can watch our latest YouTube video or listen to our audio podcast. Also listed are some of the platforms our audio podcast is on. You'll find out when the next podcast will air and who the guest will be. On the top right, you will find 2 red buttons, Learn How to Help and Become a Guest. Under Learn How to Help, you can become a partner, sponsor, contributor, or contribute to the future Millennium Bus. You can give one-time or monthly recurring. The choice is yours. The other button is Be a Guest. Click it, go to the form, and fill it out. and we will get back to you. We would love to hear your story. Click the About Us drop-down where you'll find stats, where we are reaching people, and to find more information on our sponsors. Click on the podcast drop-down, then click on the calendar tab where it will tell you when the shows will air and who will be on them. Or if you need to know about any meetups of the Millennium Beat staff, partners, or listeners. Also, there might be on the calendar an event at which the Millennium Beat staff will be at. Click the Guest tab for all previous guests, links to their website, social media pages, and any store they might have. Click the Forums drop-down. There you'll find a release, be a guest, or become a sponsor form.